right, welcome everybody to the City of Franklin Municipal Planning Commission meeting for April. Appreciate everybody being here. We will get started with the minutes from our March meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item are items that are not on tonight's agenda. If anyone in the audience wants to speak to the commission about items that are not on tonight's agenda, please come forward. All right, looks like there's not a rush to the podium, so we'll move on to announcements. Staff?
Good evening, commissioners. I just have a few announcements for tonight. First, I emailed you all, but I also wanted to follow up with another reminder. On Tuesday, May 1st, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will be having a special work session here in the boardroom to discuss annexation and growth policy. Staff will have a presentation and there will be a lot of discussion by the board. Since annexations do typically come before this body as well, I would invite you to attend and listen in because I think it'll be a really interesting discussion and some big thoughts being passed around. And then that'll be at 5 o'clock to 6:30 here in the boardroom on Tuesday, May 1st. And then I'd like to introduce you to one of our new planning staff members, the principal planner. His name's Chris Andrews, comes to us from Houston, Texas. Chris, will you stand up? He's going to be working in current planning, probably primarily in residential development projects and picking up some other special tasks as needed. So just wanted y'all to all see and introduce Chris to you. So, and then I think Vernon has an announcement to make as well.
And Vernon is not new, right?
No.
Thank you, Emily. Commissioners, I want to just take a moment to let you know of a new initiatives that we're embarking upon here. We're very fortunate in the city of Franklin. Over the last 2 years, we've realized almost $1.6 billion of private money investment in our community. And the investment that we want here is quality. That adds to the quality of life and and sustain our economy. And to do that, we believe that our development services need to be efficient too. Competition among metropolitan areas, whether it's the greater Nashville area, Dallas, Austin, Texas, Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte areas, we're all competing for businesses, and we do very well. So we also take a look at other communities of how they handle development, more process, how they handle plan reviews, permitting, making inspections, performance sureties, the whole gamut, from initial submitted all the way through occupancy. And some of the progressive areas we found have development services advisory commissions that are made up of real estate and development professionals of their community to help advise planning commissions and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen on what types of services will meet the needs of the community. So that's what we're establishing. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved an ordinance that establishes a Development Services Advisory Commission. We're in the process of soliciting volunteers from development professionals, real estate professionals, citizens to serve on that 11-member panel. And then we'll start meeting with them every other month and talk about our various development services. And I'm sure we'll be coming to you with some of their recommendations as well as the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. But ultimately, long-term, as we continue to grow, we want to make sure our services are meeting the needs of the community. So I thought I'd share that with you and let you know that we're constantly looking how we deliver our services.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Vernon. Any others, Emily?
I think
Any other
that's
special
it.
guests?
I haven't thought of any more, so we'll just
Okay.
keep moving on.
All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if there's any items that are not on tonight's agenda you want us to consider, please come forward and we'll consider those. All right, I see none, then we'll move on to our consent agenda. Excuse me, these are items that are considered non-controversial that we'll vote on all in one block. Tonight's agenda has both a secondary and initial consent. Our initial consent includes items 2, 3, 5 through 23, 5 through 25, 27, 29, and 31. Those items are considered on our consent agenda for tonight. We also have item 4 as a secondary consent. If there's any items on either one of these agendas that anyone in the audience, staff, or commission want to pull, please let me know.
I'd like to take 24 off the consent so that we can.
Okay, so
hear
item
it.
24. Any others? All right, then we'll start first by talking about our initial consent agenda. So it would be, again, items 2, 3, 5 through 23, 25, 27, 29 through 31. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on those items? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Now, our secondary consent is item number 4. I know Lisa needs to recuse herself. Can I get a motion on item number 4 as a consent?
Move for approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, then that moves us, I think, to item number 24, which is First and Main site plan, a commercial structure consisting of 37,955 square feet on 2.23 acres, located at 95 and 99 East Main Street. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a commercial development featuring retail, office, and restaurant space. The proposed two-story building will be 37,955 square feet on 2.23 acres. The property is zoned central commercial and is located in the Central Franklin Character Overlay Area, Special Area 1. Staff has reviewed and accepted the submitted parking study for shared parking between the uses of this site and also with the adjacent bank property. A final plat consolidating the two lots will need to be approved prior to issuance of a building permit. Staff recommends approval with conditions.
All right, before we hear from the applicant, is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this item? Or does someone represent the applicant?
Good evening. Excuse me. Jeff Hines with Catalyst Design Group, and I think I'm here to answer any questions you guys.
All right. Well, don't break our podium before you do.
Sorry, there's my drawing.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval with staff conditions.
Second. Oh, he's on.
Hold on, we only need 1 second.
Move for
Scott,
approval with staff.
Jimmy seconded. Did you get that, Elaine? Scott made the motion and Jimmy seconded. This young man? All right, proper motion and second. Is there any discussion? Ms. Peterson?
I want to just talk about this because it is a special lot and development in many ways. Specifically, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the cut and fill here because technically, I guess all of this is in the floodplain, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And one of the things that was submitted to staff, and I'm not sure if it's in your package, is a cut-fill, color-coded exhibit that shows the areas that are being cut and areas that are being filled. So that helps clarify it visually as far as what's happening. But the majority of the cut is in the area of the parking lot, which is permeable pavers in the back part of the site, the finger, so to speak, that runs along the river. All of the building areas up along Main Street and the intersection corner with First.
How deep is that going to be for the, down there where the parking is and everything? I mean, how much below the current surface would it be, would you think?
At the furthest point, there's a little stormwater basin in the corner of the finger that sticks out there. That is the deepest cut, but in the parking lot itself, a 1.5 foot to 1.5 foot.
And of course, you're using, I guess, 2/3 of that to fill the other part and put it above the floodplain.
Offsetting it, right. We may not be able to use that exact material, just
Oh,
you know, from a
oh, that's a
structural
good point.
standpoint. But the material would balance in terms of what's cut versus what is filled.
Actually, very good point. Thank you for saying that. Because I've understand that sometimes what is in the floodplain itself is really not good.
It's more organics
Yes,
than it
yes.
is structural fills, so.
Along that, I noticed there was a comment in some of the conditions that ask about, are you going to need to put some vents up in the, I don't want to say the foundation, but down, you know, I mean, underneath where you fill there or something
A
like that?
portion of the building, the portion toward the river is crawl space.
Okay.
So there will be vents
Okay.
in the foundation beneath that portion of the building. The portion up toward the corner is slab on grade.
I just didn't see that whenever I finally got a chance to see the, you know, what everything looked like there. See the, I guess, the elevations, if you want to say that. I didn't see that showed up there, but I can see that would be what you would want to do, right?
Yes, and, you know, we're sitting up with a knee wall, so to speak, above Main Street, similar to before, have an arcade running along the front, if you remember the prior design, that allows accessible entry into each of the shops, because the commercial use must sit a foot above the floodplain, so it's up at 40 elevation.
I noticed in there that it does say FFE is above the,
It's 40, and the corner of the intersection's about 39, just to put it in perspective,
Yeah.
but it drops as you go down toward the bridge.
I will say that I like the facade and the way it's set up, and I like this,
It's nice.
the whole setup here, really. I think it's really, it's better.
Well, one of the individuals with Chartwell is here this evening, so he's listening to your comments, so,
Thank you.
Jeff?
yes.
Just to follow up one of Ann's questions, the cut that you're cutting from the parking area will be used as, or similar, a compensating amount will be under the pad? Is it the pad of the main structure?
Yes, I mean, if it has to be taken off-site, it would be taken
Yeah, yeah,
off-site
yeah.
as an organic or whatever. But once again, kind of this is the best reference, Roger, of seeing what the red is cut, the green is fill, and the darkness of the colors indicates the amount of that going on. So you can see the majority of the cut is back here in the parking
Right.
lot area. There's a little bit under the crawl space there. And then the fill is at the corner and a little bit right out along Main Street.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
All right, any other comments?
So how far above 100-year flood elevation where your finished floor is going to be?
a foot for commercial
Just a
use.
foot. So you're not going
and-
any higher?
No. Commercial, you know, retail in that regard, and then the office use is on the second floor of the facility, so.
I mean, that, in general, that, you know, the 100-year flood elevation is a certain number now. It's not always going to be that number.
We're aware of that. Actually, it was increased pretty extensively based on the 2010 flood, which I know you guys know and have seen. You know, it jumped up about 2 feet. There's several studies the city has done that show that actually the floodplain, you know, will lower with some of the storm drainage improvements and everything else in that reach, so.
Once they do
We're-
some work at the bridge, it may.
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Did anybody want to say anything about that? Because that, if, when we're going to work on the bridge whenever we're doing Franklin Road, and that it, putting the two big culverts there.
If the culvert is part of that project, there will be a reduction in the overall flood, the
It's about-
impact of the floodplain.
About a foot from what I
Right.
saw,
Right.
so it actually goes down
2
an
feet.
additional foot.
Two.
You're gaining an extra foot.
That's
Right.
good.
That's good.
All right, any other comments? All right, seeing none, we have a proper motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, folks.
All right, item number 26, Franklin Park subdivision site plan revision 2, Lot 8, 330,575 square feet of office, with 7-level attached parking garage on 4.99 acres. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing an 11-story office building with a 7-level attached parking garage near the intersection of McEwen Drive and I-65, just off of Tower Circle, which is a private drive in the Franklin Park subdivision. This is the third building of a multi-phase plan. The proposed office building meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance, but however, the parking structure as proposed does need one design modification. So the City of Franklin zoning ordinance actually classifies parking structures as buildings, and so they are regulated under the same provisions as all non-residential or mixed-use buildings. So there are a couple sections regarding the building facades specific to facade variation that this proposed parking structure does not necessarily comply with. Just to run through them really briefly, just hitting a couple high points. Blank building walls are prohibited. Buildings shall be constructed to emphasize the proportion of height to width so that building facades are vertically oriented. Buildings shall use wall offsets or other variations such as a material change to break up the mass of a building. And then building facades that are visible from a street shall incorporate facade variations, a minimum of every 35 feet, or for larger structures, every 50 feet. Two of the proposed facades of this parking structure, the north elevation and the west elevation, are visible from public right-of-way. But we're just considering all these modifications as one modification tonight from the entire 5.3.6 section. It's staff's understanding that the applicant would desire that the proposed parking structure for this building, Building 3, match the adjacent parking structure for Building 2, which is already constructed. Buildings 1 and 2 were some of the first approved parking structures under our current zoning ordinance, and it was a staff oversight, primarily due to the complexity of the zoning ordinance, that facade variation standards were not required on the first 2 parking structures. Since that time, we have had multiple other applications for parking structures where these facade standards have been consistently applied. But while staff understands the reasoning behind the applicant's request, it is our duty as staff to consistently enforce those zoning standards. So we've asked that this design modification come before you tonight to let you make that final decision. Due to consistency with other projects, staff does recommend disapproval of the modification request.
Okay.
And just to add a quick note, we are looking at clarifying what standards actually apply to parking structures with the new zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience other than the applicant that wants to speak on this item? Or is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening, Brad Sladen with Reagan Smith Associates. With me tonight, certainly Pat Emery's here with Spectrum, or Hall Emery, excuse me. I keep doing that. And we got the design team kind of back behind us. You know, here to answer any questions you guys might have about the application at hand. Certainly, staff said that well. This parking garage is 3 Franklin Park parking structures, absolute continuation, physically connecting structures then to that of 2. So it'll be a seamless design to kind of push the parking structure for 2 on in for 3. So with that, we're asking that the exact same facades that were approved at 2 be approved with 3. We got a lot more history to talk through with that if you guys would like to hear it, but I think we're here to ask for your approval tonight of the modification of standards and then the site plan as submitted.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve
Second.
with the modification.
Why don't let's consider that separately.
Okay.
We'll just start with the main motion. So, can I get a second? Scott?
Second.
Question. Okay, so now I want to make sure I know before I vote here, because what we have before, at least what staff has presented, if we look at the legislation text, staff has presented to us the request from the applicant with a recommendation to us to disapprove the modification of standard. So what do we have on the floor here before I vote on anything?
Currently, we don't have anything really addressing that, so that, what I'd like to do is do a amendment to that main motion, if somebody wants to consider that for this modification of standards, so we're considering it separately. So if anybody wants to bring a motion for that modification of standard request, that would be appreciated.
So right now on the floor, we have no modification of standard.
I
Main
believe
motion.
if we approved the main motion as considered, it would be disapproval of the modification request. Is that not correct? Because we consider it with all staff recommendations.
Right, and staff is recommending disapproval. Okay,
Well, that's not my understanding.
because that's not what Jim,
No,
thank you, that's
I
not what I was
wouldn't
hearing.
So I need to withdraw that.
You're
That's
go-
what I was, that's what I.
Well,
We could still have a motion to.
yeah, let's still consider the modification
I
of
was trying to
standard.
add
That's,
the
I
modification that's
understand.
approved.
Why don't we, is there someone that will bring a motion
okay, so that's, because he's a director.
for the
Okay.
modification request? Go ahead.
Okay. I move that we approve the, excuse me, we approve the, now I'm just.
Request for the
We approve
modification.
as presented here with disapproval of the modification of standard, as presented by staff.
I already had mine.
Oh, I thought you withdrew. I thought you withdrew.
No, no.
I thought you withdrew.
No,
Jimmy
I
just
had
said,
mine.
You had a
We're still-
motion to approve, and it was seconded.
okay.
So,
I thought he
right
withdrew.
now, well, it was just a motion to approve the preliminary plat, right?
Well, I made a motion to
Oh, yeah,
approve
it's
with
not
with an approval of the
See,
modification.
that's-
Well, now, what we were, but then he said, wait, let's take that separately. So at this point,
Okay.
what we have on the table, unless you're gonna withdraw your motion, is just a motion to approve. If you wanna take up the modification, we either need a motion to accept the modification or a motion to deny the modification.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the modification.
Okay, so that would be a proper amendment
Okay.
to the motion to approve, if it gets seconded.
Second.
But hold on one second. Hold on. What I heard from Marcia, though, is she already made a motion. And before something happened that interrupted that she made the motion to approve denial of the
But he
MOA.
already had a motion to approve.
He made
a motion to approve the
And
I know.
those are conflicting motions. So we can't have conflicting motions.
His was, I thought Mike said he was just,
No, her motion was just to disapprove the modification
Yeah.
standard.
just a mod,
That's right.
I thought
That's
she
right.
was asking
Hold on
for.
one second, one at a time. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I guess at this point, then it sounded like you were trying to make a motion to approve it,
dis-
but with the disapproval of the modification. So it was taking over the whole motion, including the motion to disapprove. And that would be, you can't have those two motions, they would conflict. So I think at this point, if you want to make a motion to deny, you want to make a motion to approve, you just need to decide as chair which one you want to take up first.
Okay, well, I'm gonna back up then. I'm gonna ask, Mr. Franks if he would like to withdraw his motion.
No, sir.
Okay, you're gonna
Wait a
keep,
minute. Oh, you really put me on the spot.
tell you what, let's do this. I will withdraw my motion. I
Yeah.
withdraw my motion.
Okay.
We'll do it that way.
Okay.
And we'll let Jimmy have the floor.
Because we're gonna get to discuss it anyway.
Yeah, we can discuss anyway.
yeah, but your motion right now is approval.
With,
Approval
Approval
without
of the
any
modification.
modification of standards, because that's not.
See, because I thought
that's
that's where we
the-
were.
That's
the
where we
modification
are.
of standard is denial from the staff.
Right, and so now if someone wants to take up the modification, we'll need a motion to amend to either approve or deny the
well,
modification.
that's what I was trying to piggyback. I was trying to add that with my motion to
Yeah.
approve.
Okay, so will
But
you
Scott
state that
seconded it
again?
before you
That's what I
said it.
was doing.
But Scott
Hold on,
seconded it
hold on,
before you
hold
said
on.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you'll state your
Motion to approve.
amendment to the main motion
An
again.
amendment to approve the modification.
So you want to amend the main motion to approve the modification standard as requested by the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's a proper amendment. Do I have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion about the modification of standard request?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Marshall.
Okay. I understand where the applicant is coming from, that there was a mistake made and that you were able to build your parking garage. However, because there was a, excuse my language, screw up made by staff and you were able to do that, but they're now put in a precarious position of saying yes to you and allowing you to do this, but they've had people come behind you, and they now, once you're made aware that you've made a screw up and you have enforced, they have now been enforcing this. It's on the books and they've been enforcing it. They really cannot, in good faith, come back and allow someone or allow you or anyone else to not abide by these rules and then allow you to go back and not abide by it. And they've had all these people come behind you. So I'm gonna vote to disprove this modification of standard because I feel like now that they are aware, they have to abide by these rules for you and everybody else. And please, 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 please get it in writing and get this thing shored up. But I do understand where you are. The thing is, I don't think it's gonna be detrimental to your property to do this because it's probably gonna look wonderful and probably won't cost that much money, hopefully. But I understand where you're coming from on this, but I will have to vote to disprove the modification of standard.
So
All right, yeah, go ahead.
So our issue would be, we have two garages side by side that don't look alike, which is
Right.
gonna be strange. So,
Exactly.
is there a way to take some of the facade dollars from the one that you should be building now and add some facade to the existing? Is that even possible? So that they look the same?
One's structurally built already, it's got all the tests done, all the wind studies and ventilation and all that. If we go back and change it, it may modify that garage more than any of us think it could today. To go back and answer your question, we've been working on Franklin Park now for almost 5 years. And we've been very consistent with the building, the master plan, and we've executed the master plan which came to the city, you know, in 2010, maybe, 2012. So we've been working on this with staff and with the planning commission to get this project looking as good as it does. We've attracted Acadia, Franklin American Mortgage, Schneider Electric, CKE, and these big corporate tenants are there. And everything's working just fine as we get to this third building, which we're talking to tenants about that one now. So it really needs to look consistent because they are right next to each other and they are consistent. And this issue is not a new issue. We started a long time ago with it. And we've been very consistent with the commission on this garage is really one big garage with 2 buildings in front of it with a shared drive.
Chairman, can you humor me for just a second? So honestly, is this gonna be a hardship for you?
It's a big cost number right now.
Big cost?
It is.
Okay, well, I'm changing my mind then. Okay, as long as you're honest, okay. I don't want it to be a hard, okay. thank
All right, any other comments? Russell?
And with respect to the rest of the development on this site, we've got 2 more buildings and 2 more parking garages that
We did.
will go in beyond
That's
this.
two?
And
Because they really are separated from this, so we can make that transition easier.
so they'll be transitioned to conform to the standard as.
So it's 2 more?
Two more buildings, 2 more. And that's just it, I think some of us didn't quite understand the overall plan that had been developed back 10 years ago, 5 years ago, like you say, and when you see that and what you've done for the infill of that development and for the workers that work there, you know, they would prefer to keep the amphitheater and the walkable community there free of the parking if you had to reverse them. So I think what you got there was well received by the Planning Commission and from BOMA back many years ago as understanding the overall master plan. So I can see, you know, where some things may have got overlooked by staff, but still, they bought into the plan as well back then. And look what we've got out there, it's fabulous. And you know what, you're seeing the parking from the interstate, you know, with a tremendous amount of traffic there. So as far as, and what you've done to the facade of the parking is about as most expensive parking design you can have, right?
I mean, it's all precast and precast panels with handrails and all the decorative things you want to put on a garage. It doesn't look like a normal cheap garage.
Well, and I guess in this case then, well, in this case, staff will have done actually the ethical thing. We just
Right,
will have written them,
absolutely.
so
Right.
that's, you've done the right thing. Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, do we understand the motion? The motion is to approve the modification of standard as requested by the applicant? Okay, so we're voting just on the modification of standard, part of the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Now back to the main motion as modified. Any other discussion on the main motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 28, Lockwood Commercial Subdivision Preliminary Plat, creation of 2 commercial lots and 1 open space lot on 7.97 acres, located at north quadrant of the intersection of Long Point Way, Carruthers Parkway, and South Carruthers Way. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting the creation of 2 commercial lots and 1 open space lot on 7.97 acres. Envision Franklin calls for neighborhood commercial. The zoning for this parcel is neighborhood commercial, and the preliminary plat is both spelled incorrectly in the title and consistent with Envision Franklin. Staff recommends approval with conditions.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience, other than the applicant, want to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, is there someone representing the applicant?
Hi, Jeff Rosiak, Gamble Design Collaborative. Just here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. You might want to wait on the second until he finishes the motion, just in case you don't totally agree with his motion. Sort of like Jeopardy, you know, if you answer too quickly. All right, proper motion and seconded. Any discussion?
That's right.
Ma'am?
I noticed there's a lot of this in the floodplain, so how would that be worked since we're talking about floodplains?
Jeff, you want me to cover it?
Sure.
This site was part of the Lockwood Glen commercial subdivision, so the land sale, the land swap with the city for the land across the street. There's some cut-fill balance that has to occur between the city and the developer of this lot for fill on this lot to take it out of the floodplain, and that'll be done under a separate process.
All right, any other comments?
I guess the other thing is, you know, we've talked about commercial nodes. I really wanted to ask at our earlier meeting today, you know, how many commercial nodes that we have are successful? How many are kind of successful, and how many of them are not so? You know, because we've got all these commercial nodes, you know, talked about and put out. I mean, I think the zoning or in the vision plan, this was one of the ones that was discussed. But you know, I think that is something, not necessarily for this, but I think that is something that we need to look at in the bigger picture, because I know there have been places where the commercial node has not been as successful. I mean, just out in the middle of.
Yeah, Envision Franklin has some provisions in it that recommends that they not be too closely spaced together and things like that, but there's a lot more that comes into play with that, depending on the size and the scale, how much acreage is actually going to the commercial development, as well as the amount of rooftops surrounding that commercial node that can go into supporting it. So it gets to be quite a complicated issue, so I don't think I have an answer for you on that tonight, but we can explore that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a proper motion seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 32, consideration of ordinance 2018-06, an ordinance to amend Chapter 5 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Franklin, Tennessee, to amend various sections of the sign regulations pertaining to temporary signs and adding a new temporary sign type for temporary multi-story building development in progress signs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, this is a text amendment to the sign regulations in Chapter 5 of the zoning ordinance. The Building and Neighborhood Services Department has received a lot of requests for topping off banners to be placed on the top of multi-story buildings that are under construction in the community. The existing sign ordinance currently only permits freestanding development in progress signs, but does not permit attached building temporary signs. The staff has discussed the proposed text amendment with BOMA and the Planning Commission at a work session in January and at joint conceptual in March. The purpose of the proposed ordinance is to add a new temporary sign type for multi-story building development and progress signs. These sign types will be permitted in any base zoning district and limited to buildings of 3 stories or more in height. 1 temporary sign would be permitted per building, and the temporary sign would not be permitted to be illuminated or installed to exceed the height of the roof line. The temporary sign would also be required to be removed when the final certificate of occupancy is issued for the building. There's also several other minor revisions to the section that are described in the staff report. Staff recommends approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience want to speak to this item? All right, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, this is a recommendation to BOMA. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. Enjoy your evening.